Do not tell the king she is awake. The whisper reached Sophie before she opened her eyes. Bitter medicine coated her tongue. Cold air pressed against her face. When she finally looked around, she found gray stone walls, a narrow bed, and a wooden door with no handle on her side. She did not know the room. She did not know the voices outside. She did not know her own name. How long will the suppressant last? A woman asked beyond the door. Long enough, a man replied. If the Alpha King learns she remembers anything, Silverwood will lose control of the situation. Sophie pushed herself upright. Her arms trembled as though she had been still for far too long. Pale moonlight crossed the floor and touched her wrist. A silver crescent appeared beneath her skin, faint at first, then brighter with every beat of her heart. Something inside her stirred in answer. A wolf. Quiet. Weak. Awake. The lock turned. A broad man with iron-gray hair entered, followed by a healer carrying a cup. You are safe, he said. I am Alpha Gregory Hale. Sophie looked at the medicine. Who am I? Gregory hesitated for only a second. We do not know. You were found near the eastern forest 3 days ago. The healer extended the cup. The bitter scent matched the taste already in Sophie's mouth. This will help you rest. Sophie did not take it. Why is the door locked? You were confused when we found you. Then unlock it. Gregory's expression cooled. When you are stable. Sophie lowered her feet to the floor. Near the bed frame, something had been carved into the wood. A date. October 14th, 3 years earlier. Beneath it were 5 uneven words. I woke again. Still trapped. Sophie traced the letters with her fingertips. Her hand recognized the shapes before her mind did. Her own writing. Gregory noticed where she was looking. Old marks, he said quickly. This room has held many patients. Sophie turned toward him. How many of them had my handwriting? The healer's cup rattled softly. Gregory reached for the door. Give her the medicine. Sophie stepped between him and the healer. Her legs felt weak, but she remained standing. No, a horn sounded outside. Then another, deep enough to shake the window glass. Gregory froze. Sophie crossed to the narrow window and looked into the courtyard below. Black wolves wearing silver royal harnesses entered through the gates beneath Mooncrest banners. Guards rushed from the main hall. No messenger had left. No one had called for help. Yet the Alpha King had arrived. A tall man in a black coat dismounted and lifted his face towards Sophie's window as though he had known exactly where to look. The crescent on her wrist flared white. Inside her chest, the sleeping wolf opened its eyes. Gregory whispered, That is impossible. The king's voice crossed the courtyard, low and certain. He spoke the name Sophie had forgotten. Sophie Bennett. The name crossed the courtyard and entered Sophie like a key turning inside a locked room. Her knees weakened, but she caught the window frame before Gregory could reach her. Sophie, she whispered. The sound felt unfamiliar in her mouth, yet something inside her answered. Below, the Alpha King never looked away from the barred window. Gregory moved toward the door. Stay here. Sophie stepped into his path. You said no one knew who I was. The king is mistaken. Then why are you afraid of him? Gregory's jaw tightened. The horns sounded again as royal guards entered the infirmary. Heavy footsteps climbed the stone stairs. The healer placed the medicine on the table and backed away from it. Gregory opened the door before anyone could knock. King Adrian Blackwood stood in the corridor wearing a black traveling coat marked with silver thread. He was taller than Sophie expected, broad-shouldered and still, with gray eyes that found her immediately. His gaze moved from the cup of medicine to the locked door, then to the glowing crescent on her wrist. He did not enter. May I come in? Sophie stared at him. Everyone else had spoken as though her choices were inconvenient. The most powerful man in the kingdom waited for permission. You know my name? She said. Yes. Do I know yours? A quiet pain passed across his face. You did once. Gregory stepped between them. Your Majesty, she is confused and medically unstable. Adrian kept his attention on Sophie. Do you want him to remain? She looked at Gregory. No. Captain Lucas Reed appeared behind the king. Gregory's authority faded beneath Adrian's calm command. Wait downstairs. This is my pack. And this is her room. Gregory left, though his eyes stayed on the medicine until the door closed behind him. Adrian entered only after Sophie moved aside. He kept several feet between them. Why did you come before anyone sent word? She asked. Adrian raised one hand. A silver mark glowed across his palm, matching the crescent on her wrist. Because this awakened. Sophie felt her hidden wolf move closer to the surface. What does it mean? That the bond recognized you. The word tightened the air around her. What bond? Adrian reached inside his coat and removed a narrow silver bracelet. He placed it on the table rather than offering it directly. You were wearing this when I found you. Sophie approached slowly. 2 words were engraved inside the band. Sophie Bennett. Her fingers trembled as she touched the metal. Rain flashed through her mind. A woman in a blue cloak running beside her. A leather book wrapped in faded cloth. A voice saying, "Do not stop until you reach Mooncrest." The memory vanished before she could hold it. Sophie pulled her hand away. Where did you find me? Near the Mooncrest border. 3 days ago? Adrian's expression changed. 3 years ago. The room seemed to tilt. Sophie looked at the date carved into the bed frame. Gregory had lied about days. Adrian was speaking of years. Why was I here? Silverwood claimed its healing spring could weaken the curse on your memory. And you believed them? For too long. He did not soften the answer. Sophie picked up the bracelet again. A tiny line beneath the engraving caught her eye, almost hidden in the silver. She pressed it with her thumb. The band clicked open. Inside was a narrow strip of blue fabric and one folded line of writing. If Sophie wakes, do not let Gregory give her the bitter medicine. Footsteps stopped outside the door. Gregory's voice came through the wood. Your Majesty, she must take the next dose before sunrise. Sophie closed her hand around the bracelet and looked at the untouched cup. For the first time since waking, she knew one thing with certainty. The medicine was not meant to help her remember. Gregory's demand remained outside the door. The next dose is required before sunrise. Sophie looked at Adrian. Required by whom? Adrian did not answer for Gregory. He opened the door and stepped aside. Come in and explain it to her. Gregory entered with Dr. Evelyn Carter behind him, carrying a leather case instead of medicine. Captain Lucas followed with a stack of infirmary records. Gregory pointed toward the cup. Without treatment, the memory curse may return violently. Evelyn examined the liquid beneath the lantern. What is the dosage? The same as yesterday. Show me the chart. Gregory hesitated. Lucas placed the records on the table. We found 3 charts, he said. 1 for Royal Review, 1 for Silverwood Healers, and 1 hidden beneath the floorboards. Sophie opened the nearest ledger. Her name appeared beside dates stretching across 3 years. Awakening response. Recognition of voice. Partial recall. Suppressant increased. Her hand stopped at an entry from 6 months earlier. Patient remembered Moon Court. Recovery reached 18%. Dose doubled. I woke before, she said. Evelyn's expression softened. Many times. And every time I remembered something, they gave me more medicine. No one contradicted her. Gregory crossed his arms. The awakenings caused panic and dangerous confusion. Sophie turned another page. One entry described her sitting quietly for 11 minutes and asking for a woman named Elizabeth. Another recorded her repeating the words blue cloth and oath ledger. Nothing mentioned panic. Where is the danger? She asked. Gregory's silence grew heavier. Adrian remained several feet away, his restraint more visible now that Sophie knew he had waited 3 years. Why did you leave me here? She asked him. Gregory petitioned the council for permission to use Silverwood's healing spring. Lord Samuel approved the arrangement and restricted direct royal examination. You came anyway. Once each month. Sophie looked toward the door with no inner handle. A memory flickered. A man seated beyond the threshold. A low voice reading reports into the darkness. Never crossing into the room. You sat outside. Adrian went still. Yes. Gregory interrupted. Fragments are not reliable evidence. Lucas opened the hidden ledger to the final page. This is, across the top, in Gregory's handwriting, was a standing order. Memory recovery must not exceed 20%. Sophie read it twice. Why 20? Evelyn answered carefully. Enough for basic speech and cooperation. Not enough for complete testimony. The word testimony struck something deep. Rain returned. Her mother's blue cloak. A leather book pressed against Sophie's chest. Gregory standing beneath an archway and saying, "Give me the ledger, and I will protect you." Then another voice. Vanessa's. Increase the dose before she remembers the oath. Sophie gripped the table until the room steadied. Your daughter was there. Gregory's face changed. You are confused. Vanessa increased the medicine. The crescent on Sophie's wrist brightened. Evelyn turned to Gregory. Did Vanessa authorize treatment? She assisted under my authority. Lucas removed a sealed page from the bottom of the stack. Then she can explain this. The document carried Vanessa Hale's signature beneath a private instruction. If the patient speaks the words Moon Court, Oath Ledger, or Elizabeth Bennet, administer the highest suppressant level immediately. Sophie looked at the bitter cup. The truth settled with cold clarity. Silverwood had never been waiting for her memory to return. They had been measuring exactly how much of herself they could allow her to keep. The signed instruction lay between them like a confession. Sophie looked from Vanessa's name to Adrian's face. You knew I was your mate for 3 years. Yes. And you let them keep me here. The accusation came quietly, but no one in the room missed it. Adrian accepted it without stepping closer. I believed the treatment was helping. You believed reports written by the people controlling the medicine. Yes. Then why should I trust you now? Gregory opened his mouth, but Sophie raised one hand. I was not asking you. Adrian's gray eyes stayed on hers. You should not trust me because of the bond. Then why? Because I will give you every record, every legal protection, and the right to leave Mooncrest even if you reject me. He removed a folded document from inside his coat and placed it beside the bracelet. Sophie did not touch it. You prepared that today? 3 years ago. Lucas opened the page so she could read without taking it. Independent protection under royal law. Full authority over medical care. No guardian claim. No obligation to Mooncrest or its king. Sophie read the final line twice. Protection remains valid regardless of mate bond acceptance. Gregory gave a cold laugh. A royal document does not erase the danger of an incomplete recovery. Sophie turned toward Evelyn. Can the medicine be stopped? Not suddenly, the healer said. But the dose can be reduced safely with monitoring. Adrian spoke at once. Then stop it. Sophie faced him. You do not decide my treatment. The words cut through the room. Adrian's expression changed, not with anger, but recognition. You are right. He looked at Evelyn. Explained every option to Sophie. Follow only the plan she chooses. Gregory stepped forward. Silverwood remains responsible for her care. Sophie held up the hidden bracelet message. Silverwood was instructed not to give me the bitter medicine. That note could be false. Then why was it hidden where only I could find it? She turned back to Adrian. When did your wolf recognize me? The night I found you near the Mooncrest border. Was I awake? No, did you touch me? Only long enough to move you out of the rain after Evelyn confirmed it was safe. Did you complete the bond? No, why not? Adrian's answer came without hesitation. A sleeping woman cannot give consent. The room became still. Sophie looked at the glowing mark on his palm. But you chose me. I chose to protect you. His voice lowered. I chose to wait. The rest was always yours. Something inside her wolf softened, but Sophie did not confuse recognition with trust. And if I walk away, I will make certain no one follows unless you ask for protection. Even you. A shadow crossed his face. Even me. Gregory shook his head. This is sentimental theater. She is a moonkeeper witness tied to a dangerous conspiracy. The word witness opened another memory. Sophie standing beneath rain beside a stone bridge. Her mother pressing a leather book wrapped in blue cloth into her arms. Gregory's voice behind them promising safe passage. Then Vanessa whispering, if the king finds her first, we lose everything. Sophie gripped the table. You were not treating a patient, she said to Gregory. You were containing a witness. His silence answered. Outside, thunder rolled over Silverwood. From the lower hall came the frightened cry of a child. Sophie heard herself hum before she understood why. A soft lullaby. Margaret Collins, the elderly healer waiting in the corridor, stepped into view. Her face went pale. That song belonged to Elizabeth Bennet. Sophie's breath caught. My mother? Margaret nodded slowly. And she sang it the night she hid the oath ledger. Margaret stepped fully into the room as thunder moved across the hills. Elizabeth Bennet sang that lullaby whenever she needed Sophie to remember where home was. The name struck deeper than the storm. Sophie looked at the elderly healer. You knew my mother. I worked beside her before she disappeared. Margaret's hands trembled as she reached into her apron and withdrew a small piece of faded blue thread. She wrapped the oath ledger in cloth this color. Sophie opened the bracelet and compared the hidden fabric. They matched. Another memory broke through. Rain pouring between black trees. Elizabeth pressing a leather book against Sophie's chest. Run to Mooncrest, her mother whispered. Do not let Gregory take this. Then Gregory appeared beneath the stone arch, his voice calm. Give me the ledger, and I will protect both of you. Sophie remembered believing him for one terrible second. The memory shifted. Vanessa stepped from behind him, holding a silver medicine case. The king cannot hear her testimony, she said. Not until the council changes the oath. Sophie gripped the table as the room returned. Adrian did not touch her. What did you see? He asked. My mother trusted Gregory. Her voice shook once, then steadied. He promised safe passage. Vanessa had the medicine before I was ever brought here. Gregory's expression hardened. Fragments shaped by fear are not evidence. Margaret faced him. Then explained why Elizabeth vanished the same night Sophie arrived unconscious. She left Silverwood voluntarily. Without her coat, her records, or her daughter? Gregory said nothing. A frightened cry sounded again from below. Ethan Miller stood at the end of the corridor, frozen by the thunder. Sophie moved toward him before anyone could stop her. She knelt several feet away and began the lullaby softly. Ethan's breathing slowed. The silver crescent on Sophie's wrist warmed, and the next memory arrived with the melody. Her mother lifting a loose stone beneath a window. The blue-wrapped ledger disappearing inside the wall. Adrian's voice beyond a closed door months later, reading reports while Sophie floated between sleep and waking. Then her own whisper. Do not let them choose for me. Adrian answering from the hallway. They will not. Sophie stopped singing. Ethan was calm now, but she could barely breathe. You heard me, she said to Adrian. Once, he replied. For only a few seconds. And you remembered? Every word. Sophie looked toward the doorway with no handle on her side. Where did you sit? Adrian pointed to the corridor wall directly opposite the room. There. Margaret followed his hand. Beneath the narrow window, one stone was slightly darker than the others. Lucas crossed the corridor and pressed along its edge. The stone shifted inward. Behind it lay an empty hollow lined with faded blue cloth. No ledger. Only a torn page remained. Sophie unfolded it. Elizabeth's handwriting filled the top line. If the book is gone, trust the names hidden where Sophie carries her own. Sophie looked down at the silver bracelet. The engraving inside no longer seemed simple. Beneath the words Sophie Bennett ran a second seam, almost invisible. She pressed it. A hidden panel opened, revealing a tightly folded strip of parchment covered with alpha names. Gregory Hale appeared first. Lord Samuel Blackwood appeared last. Adrian's face went still when he saw his cousin's name. At the bottom, Elizabeth had written one final warning. The oath was changed inside Moon Court, and the man beside the throne helped them do it. Evelyn carried the bitter medicine to the infirmary laboratory, while Lucas sealed every treatment record under royal authority. Sophie remained beside the open wall compartment, the parchment of names resting in her palm. Lord Samuel Blackwood, the man beside the throne. Adrian read the warning once, then looked away from his cousin's name as though refusing to let family loyalty shape the evidence. Gregory folded his arms. A list hidden in jewelry proves nothing. Sophie closed the bracelet. Then you should not be worried about where it leads. Vanessa arrived before sunrise wearing a silver traveling coat, her expression controlled until she saw the hidden records on the table. Father, the council has summoned the king back to Mooncrest. Lucas took the sealed message from her hand. How did the council know he was here? Vanessa glanced toward Adrian. Lord Samuel felt the royal bond awaken. Sophie listened carefully. The answer sounded prepared. Or you sent word after the horns sounded. Vanessa's gaze shifted to the bitter cup. That was enough. Evelyn returned carrying 2 glass vials and a written report. The medicine contains a memory suppressant combined with an herb that strengthens existing magical barriers. Sophie looked at her. It did not create the curse. No, but repeated doses prevented your mind from recovering naturally. Gregory stepped forward. Without it, she could have become unstable. Evelyn opened the hidden chart. There is no record of dangerous behavior. There are only increases after recognition, speech, and memory return. Vanessa's calm finally cracked. She remembered the Moon Court. If she testified before the alliance was secured, every pack could have turned against the crown. Adrian's eyes hardened. You erased her mind to protect a political agreement. We preserved peace. Sophie faced her. You preserved silence. The crescent on her wrist warmed as another memory surfaced. Vanessa beside the bed, holding the medicine while Gregory watched from the doorway. Sophie whispering Elizabeth's name. Vanessa answering, "Increase it. She is too close." The image faded, but the truth remained. "You were there every time I woke," Sophie said. Vanessa did not deny it. Gregory raised his voice. Everything was done to prevent conflict. Sophie held the bracelet against her chest. "They did not protect my mind. They kept it empty." Adrian turned to Evelyn. "Stop the medicine immediately." Sophie looked at him. "No." The room went still. Adrian met her gaze. "Tell me, you do not decide my treatment because your intentions are better than theirs." He lowered his head once. "You are right." Evelyn placed 3 written options on the table. "A gradual reduction is safest. You may remain here under independent care, travel to Mooncrest with a royal medical team, or choose another location." Sophie read each page. "I choose the gradual reduction. I choose Evelyn as my healer. I choose to leave Silverwood today." Gregory stepped toward the door. "Silverwood law does not permit an unstable patient to leave without guardian approval." Sophie lifted the independent protection document Adrian had prepared 3 years earlier. "I have no guardian." Lucas opened the royal seal, and the hidden records establish probable medical misconduct. Silverwood's authority is suspended pending investigation. Vanessa looked toward the parchment in Sophie's hand. "If you enter Moon Court with those names, Lord Samuel will accuse the king of using his mate to remove political rivals." Sophie folded the list into the bracelet. "Then I will not enter as his mate." Adrian watched her, silent. "I will enter as a witness," she continued. "And I will speak before anyone tells the court who I am supposed to be." Thunder moved farther into the hills. Margaret approached with the torn page from the wall. The ledger itself is still missing. Sophie studied the blue cloth lining the hollow. A memory returned with sudden clarity. Her mother sealing the leather book beneath a stone floor while Adrian's voice sounded beyond the door months later. Not inside the room. Outside it. Sophie looked toward the place where he had sat during every visit. "The ledger was never hidden behind this wall," she said. "It was hidden beneath the threshold the king was forbidden to cross." Lucas knelt beside the doorway and examined the stone threshold. The center slab was darker than the floor around it, its edges sealed with wax nearly the same color as the rock. Adrian remained outside the room while the captain worked. "You still will not cross," Sophie said. "Not unless you ask me to." She looked at the place where he had sat month after month, reading reports to a woman who could not answer. "Come in." Adrian crossed the threshold for the first time in 3 years. The silver mark on his palm warmed, but he stopped beside the wall and allowed Sophie to stand closest to the hidden stone. Lucas loosened the seal. Beneath the slab lay a shallow compartment wrapped in faded blue cloth. Sophie lifted out a narrow leather ledger. The moment it touched her hands, memory returned in a rush. Rain against the infirmary window. Elizabeth kneeling at the doorway while Gregory argued with someone down the corridor. "They will search the walls," her mother whispered. "They will never search beneath the place the king is forbidden to cross." Sophie remembered helping lower the book into the floor. Then Vanessa entered with the first silver medicine case. Elizabeth pushed Sophie toward the eastern passage. "Take the bracelet. If they find the ledger, the names remain with you." The memory shifted. Sophie running through the forest. Gregory calling after her. A sudden weight inside her mind. Then darkness. She opened her eyes in the present with the ledger pressed against her chest. Adrian had not moved closer. "What did you remember?" "My mother hid it here. I helped her." Sophie opened the cover. The first pages contained ancient Moonkeeper oaths. Protect testimony. Preserve memory. Never use confinement or medicine to prevent a witness from speaking. Gregory Hale's signature appeared beneath the vow. Lord Samuel Blackwood had signed as royal observer. Lucas turned to the final section. Several lines had been altered with different ink. The original promise to protect Moonkeepers had been changed into authority to place them under indefinite supervision during political emergencies. Samuel approved the change, Adrian said. His voice carried no defense of his cousin. Sophie studied him. "Did you know?" "No. Would you tell me if you had?" Adrian met her gaze. "Yes, even if it cost me the throne." A softer memory opened. Adrian seated outside the door, reading a report about wintergrain while Sophie drifted near consciousness. Her own voice barely audible. "Do not let them choose for me." He stopped reading. "They will not." She remembered his hand resting against the floor outside the threshold, close enough for the bond to warm, but never crossing into her room. Sophie looked at him now. You kept coming even when I never woke. I did not know whether you could hear me. I could. The admission changed something between them, but she did not let it become a promise she was not ready to make. This does not mean I choose the bond. I know. Lucas found a sealed page near the back. It contained dates, names, and payments to Silverwood healers. Vanessa's signature appeared beside every dosage increase. Lord Samuel's seal authorized continued restriction. At the bottom was a scheduled moon court session for noon the following day. Subject: removal of King Adrian Blackwood for concealing a dangerous Omega witness. Margaret drew a quiet breath. They prepared the accusation before Sophie woke. Adrian looked toward the window. Samuel expected the seal to awaken eventually. Sophie closed the ledger. Then he expected me to enter court confused, medicated, and unable to speak. Not anymore, Evelyn said. Sophie placed the bracelet around her wrist and held the ledger firmly. I will testify. Adrian stepped toward the doorway. Mooncrest is 80 miles from here. We leave within the hour. Sophie stopped him. You will travel ahead. He turned back. Why? Because I will not arrive hidden inside the king's protection. I will enter with Evelyn, Margaret, and the evidence. Adrian considered her words, then nodded. As you choose. Outside, a royal messenger reached the courtyard carrying a black-sealed summons. Lucas opened it and read the final line aloud. The council had already declared Sophie mentally unfit to testify. Sophie entered Moon Court without the Alpha King beside her. Evelyn walked on one side, Margaret on the other, while Lucas carried sealed medical records behind them. The oath ledger remained in Sophie's hands. Above the circular chamber, daylight poured through the open dome and touched the silver crown resting before Adrian's empty throne. Lord Samuel Blackwood stood at the council table. Gregory and Vanessa waited near him beneath Silverwood banners. The court has already ruled that Sophie Bennett lacks the mental capacity to testify, Samuel announced. Sophie continued toward the central stone. You ruled before examining me. Samuel's expression did not change. Your own records show incomplete memory. Evelyn stepped forward. Her memory is incomplete because it was deliberately suppressed. She understands the evidence, the consequences of testimony, and her legal choices. Gregory lifted one hand. The royal healer is acting under the king's influence. Sophie placed the ledger on the stone. Then ask me. The chamber quieted. Elder Counselor Henry Walsh leaned forward. Do you understand why you are here? To testify about altered Moonkeeper oaths, unauthorized treatment, and the people who tried to prevent me from remembering either. Do you understand that your testimony may affect the throne? Yes. And the mate bond. Sophie looked toward Adrian. He stood among the witnesses rather than beside the crown. The bond is not my testimony. Henry nodded slowly. Proceed. Sophie opened the ledger to Gregory's vow. Her voice remained steady as she read. Protect testimony. Preserve memory. Never use confinement or medicine to prevent a Moonkeeper witness from speaking. Gregory's signature rested beneath the words. Did you swear this oath? She asked. Under an older system, Gregory replied. Did you swear it? He hesitated. Yes. The moon seal stamped into the page glowed faintly. Sophie turned to the altered version. Did you authorize this change? The council required emergency authority. The seal dimmed. A low silver tone moved through the chamber. Gregory stared at the page. Sophie faced Vanessa. Did you increase my suppressant after I spoke about Moon Court? Vanessa looked toward her father. Answer her, Henry ordered. Yes, Vanessa whispered. Why? Because Lord Samuel said the kingdom would fracture if you remembered before the alliance was complete. Every gaze shifted to Samuel. Sophie opened the payment records. Did you approve continued restriction after receiving reports that I was calm and coherent? Samuel's jaw tightened. I approved measures necessary for stability. The moon seal darkened beneath his signature. Adrian did not speak. Sophie understood why. He had promised the court would hear her voice, not his defense. Samuel turned toward him anyway. Your Majesty concealed a dangerous witness because your wolf identified her as mate. Adrian stepped forward only when the council addressed him. I concealed nothing. I accepted reports I should have challenged sooner. His honesty moved through the room without magic. But I will not surrender her freedom to correct my failure. Henry lifted the council staff. The court offers two choices. Deliver Sophie and the ledger into independent council custody, or relinquish the crown pending review. Adrian removed the silver crown from the table and placed it before them. I chose her freedom before she ever knew my name. Sophie felt the bond warm, but she did not step toward him. I am not choosing a mate today, she said. I am choosing to testify. I am choosing my treatment. I am choosing whether I remain in Mooncrest. She placed her protection document beside the ledger. And no court will call custody freedom again. The moon seal flared across every original oath. Gregory's authority mark faded. Samuel's followed. Henry lowered the staff. Gregory Hale and Lord Samuel Blackwood are suspended pending full investigation. Vanessa Hale will testify under independent review. Sophie closed the ledger. The court had expected her to stand behind the king. Instead, she stood before him, free enough to leave. Beyond the open doors, the road from Mooncrest waited beneath the afternoon light. 3 months later, the first sanctuary opened beyond Mooncrest beneath a line of quiet pine trees. Every resident received a key to her own room, a complete copy of her medical records, and the right to refuse any treatment she did not understand. Sophie wrote those rules before choosing the color of the walls. Evelyn directed the medical wing under an independent charter. Margaret taught the younger healers how to preserve memory without controlling it. Lucas delivered recovered files from Silverwood each week. More names appeared than Sophie expected. Omegas who had been medicated without consent. Witnesses declared unstable after asking questions. Families denied access to sealed records written about their own daughters. Sophie read every case, even when the words reopened pieces of her own missing years. Her memories returned slowly. Rain against stone. Her mother's blue cloak. The oath ledger beneath the threshold. Adrian reading outside the locked door while she floated close to waking. Not every memory returned, and Sophie stopped treating the empty spaces as evidence that she was incomplete. Gregory remained suspended while the investigation expanded. Lord Samuel lost his counsel position. Vanessa testified about the altered dosages and accepted responsibility for the choices she had made. Her cooperation did not erase them. Adrian supported the sanctuary with royal funds, but no crown symbol appeared above the entrance. He visited only after receiving an invitation. On the first evening of winter, Sophie found him waiting beside the open gate. Snow rested lightly on his black coat. In one hand, he carried the silver bracelet. "It belongs to you," he said. Sophie accepted it, but did not fasten it. "The council restored your crown." "Yes. And they still expect an announcement about the bond." "They can continue expecting one." His answer carried no impatience. Sophie looked toward the road beyond the sanctuary. "If I leave Mooncrest, does the protection document remain valid? For the rest of your life? Even if I never return?" Adrian's gray eyes held hers. Even then. Her wolf stirred beneath her ribs, calm now, no longer trapped between medicine and fear. Sophie walked through the gate. Adrian did not follow. He did not call her name. She continued nearly 30 feet along the snowy road until the sanctuary lights glowed behind her like a second sunrise. The first time she had awakened, everyone had told her who she was. Patient, witness, Omega, mate. Each word had arrived before she could decide whether it belonged to her. Sophie stopped. The bracelet warmed in her palm. She turned back. Adrian remained exactly where she had left him, powerful enough to command a kingdom and disciplined enough not to command her. She returned slowly. "The first time I woke, everyone told me who I was," she said. "This time, I choose who I become." Adrian waited. Sophie fastened the bracelet around her own wrist. "I choose this sanctuary. I choose the search for my mother. I choose every memory that returns and every empty place that does not. They remain yours." Sophie stepped closer. "And I choose to discover what this bond can become with you." Adrian extended one hand, open and still. Sophie placed hers in it. The silver crescent on her wrist answered the mark in his palm. Warmth moved between them like moonlight crossing an unlocked threshold. The mate bond awakened without closing around her. Behind them, the sanctuary doors remained open, and for the first time in 3 years, Sophie understood that being chosen meant nothing unless she was free to choose in return.